Hello algebra class, this is section 9.5 factoring trinomials review video, and this is also the Who Wore It Best edition. Our first example is going to be m squared plus 17m plus 72, and the goal is we're trying to factor this. So I went ahead and I just wrote the original problem out again, and my first instinct is I want to find two numbers that are going to multiply to give me 72, but that are going to add together to give me a positive 17. So right at the top of my head, like not even really thinking of many factors, I thought of 9 and 8 because that's just the common multiples of 72. And it just so happens that they both add together to give us a positive 17. So that's why I knew that it was going to be, my factors are 9 and 8, and when I factor this trinomial, since they're both positive, both of our signs are positive, we know that it doesn't matter what order our binomials come in. So our binomials are going to be m plus 8 and m plus 9. And I do this for a lot of the problems. I have this check step in here only because if you get in the habit of checking at the end of the problem, you're guaranteed not to go wrong on the test. So I'm just trying to help you guys practice some good study techniques. So when I do my check step, basically all you do is you go back and FOIL, and our end result is we're going to get m squared plus 17m plus 72. So that checks out with our original problem, so we know that these are the correct factors. This is our second problem. We have b squared plus 16b plus 64. And along the same idea, we want to find our factors of 64. So 64, our factors are 8 and 8. I right away knew that I wanted to go this route because I know 64 is a square, so I kind of think about along those lines. And then also when we add 8 and 8, we're also going to get our 16. So that's where we know that we're headed in the right direction. And once again, since both of our signs are positive, we know that it's going to be a positive sign in between both of our binomials. So it doesn't matter what order they come in. The order matters later down the road when we have different signs in here, but for right now, since they're both positive, it doesn't matter. So you could either factor it as b plus 8 times the quantity b plus 8, or if you recognize that this is a binomial squared, you could also write b plus 8 squared. So whatever way you write it is correct either way. Just wanted to give more options for everybody. This is problem 3. We have x squared plus 14x plus 24 with our banana dogs. And we have x squared plus 14x plus 24. I just rewrote the problem. And then down here, I listed our factors. So 24 has more factors than the ones we usually have been working with. We have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. And what I'm going to start doing is writing our sums over on this side. So we have, I just wrote out our sums here, but we have 1 and 24 will give us 25, 2 and 12 will give us 14, 3 and 8 will give us 11, and 4 and 6 will give us 10. So we're actually looking for this 2 and 8 combination right here. And if you knew that this was the combination you were going to use, there's no need to list out all the factors. I'm just doing that to be thorough and to show other students there's different possibilities or different ways to solve the same problem. So I knew that both of our signs were positive, so I know that it's going to be x plus 2 times x plus 12. It is not incorrect if you have x plus 12 times the quantity x plus 2. Since our signs are both positive, it doesn't matter, but even if you're just switching these binomials all together, you're not incorrect. And then just to get in the habit of double checking, go back through and FOIL. And when we FOIL, we're going to see that we get the original problem, x squared plus 14x plus 24. But just to start getting in the habit of checking using our FOIL method. So we have k squared minus 13k plus 40 as our fourth example with our sunglasses. And I went ahead and just rewrote the original problem, but on the side, like I said, I'm going to start doing is listing our factors. So we have 1 and 40, and when we add those together, we'll get 41. 2 and 20 will give us 22. 4 and 10 will give us 14. And 5 and 8 will give us 13. So clearly, this is the area that we want to start looking at. 5 and 8 will give us 13 right here. So this is the factor combination that we're looking for. But hopefully you were able to see right here, this is a negative 13, but a positive 40. So We know that the only way to have a second term that's a negative but our last term to be a positive, we know that it's going to be two negative numbers because two negative numbers will multiply to give us a positive. So that's where that positive 40 is coming from. So now we know that both the 5 and the 8 must be negative, and that we know by looking at our second term. So that second term plays a lot of importance when we're trying to figure out which sign goes with which term. And so since they're both negative, it doesn't matter. K minus 5 times the quantity K minus 8, or you could switch them and have K minus 8 times the quantity K minus 5. Either or you're correct. And then just go back through and double check your math by foiling, and you should get the original problem down the bottom, K squared minus K minus 13K plus 40. So we know that we have the correct answer. Here we have the two birds versus each other, but our fifth example is k squared minus 15, or x squared minus 15x plus 50. And when we find the factors of 50, we know it's going to be 1 and 50, 2 and 25, and 5 and 10. So when we find our sum, it's going to be 51, 27, and 15. But hopefully you can see that we're going to want to use this combination right here, this 5 and 10, since we're looking for a negative 15. Okay, and then like the previous problem, we are working with a negative but a positive 50. A negative 15 but a positive 50. So we know that once again our two terms are going to be negative. So it doesn't matter what order we have them in this case. We have x minus 5 times the quantity x minus 10. So either way you have them is correct. And then I just went back and I used our FOIL technique to make sure that we got the correct answer. And it's going to be x squared minus 15x plus 50. So I know that I'm correct and I'm okay. Here's another problem. We have g squared minus 10g plus 24. And we have our hoodie cats, both adorable. And we have our factors of 24. We have 1 and 24, and when we add them together, we're going to get 25. 2 and 12 will give us 14. 3 and 8 will give us 11, and 4 and 6 will give us 10. So this is the combination that we're focused on, this 4 and 6. And since we're working again with a positive 24, but a negative second term of negative 10, we know that they're both going to have to be negative. So we have g minus 4 times g minus 6. And then just using our FOIL again, we're going to get g squared minus 6g minus 4g plus 24, combining our like terms to get a negative 10g as our second term, which gives us our original problem. Okay, so our seventh example is a little different. We have p squared plus 3p minus 18. So the difference, if you're not able to see it, is that this third term has a negative sign in front of it, but this second term has a positive sign throughout it. So like I said, looking at the signs will give you a lot of information. And in this case, we know that this negative sign means that we're going to have a negative times a positive number. So we have a negative number times a positive number. That's the combination that we're looking at. So this plays an important role when we're looking at factors, because that means that we're either going to be combining like terms and being left over with positive amount, or we're going to be combining like terms and being left over with a negative amount for the second term. So if that doesn't make sense right away, go ahead and look at my explanation. So we have p squared plus 3p minus 18, and I went ahead and listed all of our factors again. So we have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. But here's the difference. We have 19 when we add 1 and 18 together. But when we find the difference between 1 and 18, we're going to get 17. 2 and 9 will get a positive 11 if we combined them. And then if we find the difference between 2 and 9, we'll get 7. If we add 3 and 6 together, we're going to get a positive 9. But if we find the difference between 3 and 6, we'll get 3. So this is the combination that we want to use, because we want to get this 3 as our second term. Okay, and so that's the difference of 6 and 3. So now all it depends on is we want to look at this second term and we want to look at the sign in front of it. It's a positive 3p. So when we combine our like terms, we want our bigger number to be positive so that when we subtract the negative 3 from the 6, we'll be left over with a positive amount still. So we want to have a positive 6 and a negative 3. So our answer is going to be two binomials, p plus 6 times the quantity p minus 3. But this is when it's extremely, extremely important to go back and double check our work. So if we use the FOIL method, we'll find that it's p squared minus 3p plus 6p minus 18. So this is what I was talking about. We're going to get a positive 6p and a negative 3p. So when we combine our like terms, we're going to get a positive 3p left over since our bigger number was the positive. So that second term right here always tells us which number has to be positive and which number has to be negative. So you want to pay close attention to that. But we're going to get the problem we originally started with, so we know that we are on the right track. So this is our correct answer. The quantity p plus 6 times the quantity p minus 3. 8 is very similar. We have n squared minus n minus 30 in our cute lion versus lion. So what I did was I listed the factors of 30. We have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and 5 and 6. So just like the other problems, I listed what happens when we combine our like terms and what happens when we subtract our like terms. Okay? So 1 and 30 will give me a positive 31, 2 and 15 will give me a positive 17, 3 and 10 will give me 13, 5 and 6 will give me 11. The difference is going to be 29, 13, 7, and 1. So hopefully you guys are able to recognize that this is really a negative 1 here. So a negative n, the coefficients in front of n is really 1. So knowing that, this is the combination that we are looking for, 6 and 5, that will give us a 1 when we combined the correct way. So, like I said, that middle term tells us what number is going to be positive and what number is going to be negative. So we want the bigger number to be negative so that there's a negative left over. So if we let 6 be negative and 5 be positive, when we add them or combine our like terms, we're going to be left over with a negative 1. And that's exactly what we want. And hopefully you're able to recognize the difference, because if we let 5 be negative and 6 be positive, we would actually be left over with a positive 1. So that's why that middle term tells us which sign is going to be which way. So when we factor, we should get n minus 6 times the quantity n plus 5. And like I said, the check step is very important at this point to make sure that we're doing it correctly. When we factor, we're going to get, or when we FOIL, we'll get n squared plus 5n minus 6n minus 30. And then when we combine our like terms, we'll get n squared minus n, which is really negative 1n minus 30. So we have the correct answer. Here's our example 9. We have x squared plus 4x minus 21. And we have our hot dog cats. So we have x squared plus 4x minus 21. We're looking for factors of 21, but that add or combined to give us a positive 4x. So 1 and 21 will give us 22 when we combine them, and the difference is 20. 3 and 7, when we combine them, they're going to give us 10, or if we find the difference, there's 4. So we should be looking at this second option right here, since it's going to give us, when we combine correctly, a 4. So we see that this is a positive 4x, which hopefully by now you're able to recognize that we want the bigger number to be positive. So this 7 must be the one that has the addition sign in front of it, or the positive sign. So we want to take away 3 and be left over with a positive 4. So our signs are going to be x plus 7 times the quantity x minus 3. Then when we FOIL and go back and check, we should get x squared minus 3x plus 7x minus 21, combining our like terms to get our original problem, x squared plus 4x minus 21. So now we have x squared plus 14xy plus 48y squared. So hopefully you're able to recognize the difference because this problem's a little different. We have two variables that we're working with. So to make the first one easy, hopefully we'll recognize that we are working with two positives. So we don't have to worry about our negative and combining terms. Really, we're just looking for factors of 48 that add to give us 14. So, like I just said, we're looking for those factors of 48, which are going to be 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, and 6 and 8. When we combine our terms, 49, 26, 18, 18, 16, and then our last option, which is 14. So the combination 6 and 8 is what we're looking for because it's going to give us 14 when we combine. And since both terms are positive, like I just talked about before, we know that the signs are both going to be positive. The only difference is we're looking for, when we FOIL those our last terms, we want to get a 48y squared. So to get y squared, we're going to have a y in each of our binomials in the last term. So we have x plus 6y, because we have 6 and 8 down here, x plus 6y times x plus 8y. And even after working with mathematics as long as I have, I still always check, especially on ones when I'm working with double variables, to make sure that I'm getting the right answer. But when I combine my like terms, x and x, x squared, x and 8y will give me 8xy, 6y times x will give me 6yx, and then my last terms, like I was talking about before, will give me 48y squared. When I combine my like terms, I'm getting y squared plus 14xy plus 48y squared. 11, we have j squared plus 3jk minus 28k squared. And we have our Starbucks animals, which are adorable. So we have j squared plus 3jk, and we're looking for our factors that give us 28k squared. So we have 1 and 28, which will give us 29. And we see that the terms are different, so we always want to take into factor that what happens is when we find the difference of the two terms. So the difference between 1 and 28 is actually 27, but when we combine, we get 29. 2 and 14 will give us 16, and then when we find the difference, it'll be 12. 4 and 7 will give us 11 when we find the combine our terms. The difference between 4 and 7 is actually 3. So we're able to find the combination that we're working with right now, and that should be 4 and 7 because we want this 3 right here. So now we want to look at our second term right here. So our second term is a positive 3jk, and that means that we want our bigger term to be positive so that so there's leftover positive, if you want to think of it that way. We want there to be leftover positive. So this trinomial is going to factor into j plus 7k times the quantity j minus 4k. And hopefully you're using my recommendation in foiling to double check. And when you do, you'll get a negative 4jk plus 7kj. And when you combine your like terms, you'll get a positive 3jk. So indeed, our factors do work, so we know that we got this one correct. 12 is v squared minus 2vw minus 63w squared. We're dealing with a negative and a negative, so we're going to have a positive and a negative in our binomials. First, find the factors of 63. 1 and 63, 3 and 21, 7 and 9. Find what happens when we combine them and what happens when we find the difference. 24, 62. 64, 62, 24, 18, 16, and 2. Well, this is the combination that we want to pay attention to right here. Now that I recognize that the purple was probably a bad option, but we want to look at this combination right here. In this case, we want to look at the second term now, to figure out which one, 7 or 9, is going to have the positive or negative symbol in front of it. So we want there to be leftover negative, which means that our bigger number should have the negative sign in front. So we have V minus 9W times the quantity V plus 7W. That way when we factor, down at the bottom when we check step, we're going to be left with 7VW minus 9WV. And when we combine our terms, we're going to have a leftover negative 2VW. So this definitely checks out. If you have any problems, I know this video was kind of longer than the other ones, but I wanted you to have enough problems to see the variety of them. If you have any questions, please stop in during morning home base or afternoon home base, resource time, and then please take advantage of my availability for the bot program and let me know if you want to meet after school.